Let us look at a few more examples of externalities, especially the negative externalities. What you see over here is a power plant, and this is a coal based power plant. Uh, in a coal based power plant, there are two stakeholders. One is the coal industry, which produces electricity, and other are the consumers who consume those electricity. However, we all know that there is a third party which might be adversely affected because of a power plant. So, what is that third party? One can think of the local population, some people living around that power plant, and they might be affected adversely because of the fly ash, because of the smoke which is emitted from the power plant. So, that polluting environment of the power plant is adversely affecting the health of the people around it, maybe the fields of the farmers which are sowing the some crops over there, right? The residents who are living in their houses, all those could be affected. So that cost is not borne by the power industry, and neither is it borne by the consumers. But if, let us think of it this way, that if the industry, the coal industry or the consumers are required to pay for the damages which are caused to the local population, or at a larger scale, the damage which might result because of, let us say, the emissions causing climate change, then that cost, when added to the private cost, becomes the social cost. So the social cost would be different than the private cost if the cost of negative externality is added to it. So that is the meaning of social cost being greater than private cost in case of negative externalities. Uh, and why and how do you compute that cost? This computation of this cost is really uh, a detailed and challenging task, because that might need a lot of data. Like, for example, what would be the increase in the healthcare cost because of pollution, or what are the foregone production opportunities for the farmers, or could be that there are some hotels around that power plant, but because of the pollution, the tourism would be adversely affected. All these things. So all these are indirect costs, and this indirect cost, if you compute and add to the private cost, that becomes the social cost. Another example of negative externality is a traffic congestion. We know that traffic congestion affects not only the drivers which are caught in the traffic, it affects the third party. And how does it affect the third party? It affects the third party because there would be an increase in travel time, or there could be more possibilities of traffic accidents. There could be an increase in fuel consumption because the vehicles would be idling, and there could also be an environmental pollution because of congestion, right? And this costs, which are borne by the society, they could be called as the negative externality. And these negative externalities costs are not borne by the stakeholders here, right? So how do you compute that? So if you want to compute the negative externality cost because of traffic congestion, one might have to include, say, the cost of traffic police, the hospital cost for accident cases, maybe the pollution related health costs, or at a broader level, the climate change impact costs. Okay, so all these things, if you could compute and quantify, then that becomes the cost because of negative externality. And if it is added to the private cost, we would get the social cost because of traffic, including the traffic congestion for traveling in a city. Another example could be a nuclear power plant, because if there is a purely voluntary exchange between a consumer and a nuclear power producer, then in that case, the third party uh, is neglected. But if you consider the third party could be the passive society, which might be affected because of radioactive waste, right? And this cost, which is gone to the third party, is neither borne by the power industry nor by the consumers who might receive that electricity, right? But if, let us say, the consumers or the power industry, nuclear power industry, is made to uh, spend for the accidental deaths or the health cost from radioactivity or the cost of emergency, then that becomes the cost because of externalities. And if those are added to the private cost, that would give us the social cost. Okay. Uh, so, in all the negative externality cases, we find that the cost to the society uh, is the externality, which is the lower cost. And finally, the example of plastic bags. We know that a lot of plastic bags are being produced and being in use, right? And it is really convenient to carry goods in the plastic bags. So it has got some use, but it also has its negative side, because it might lead to environmental damage, damage to the wildlife, and so on and so forth. So this unwanted and difficult to dispose of waste in the form of plastic bags is the externality. And if you want to calculate that externality, we need to include the impact the plastic bags are having on the environment. And if you figure this out and assign some cost to it, that becomes the cost because of negative externality. If it gets added to the private cost, that becomes your social cost. So in this way, we can look at the negative externality and think of the way of quantifying the negative externality in terms of money or costs. Thank you.